end. And I'm trying to remember if it starts on that side or that side. Beatus? It starts on that side, right? Okay, so 40 or whatever, 41 starts there, and it goes that way. It's important because it says Ottawa Pacers, and if we do the other way, it'll say Surrey Prairie, Ottawa. Right? So it needs to go that way. Each board, now the marks have kind of gone away. Some of them are still there. There's an O and an X at each end. Each board needs two legs. One that says X, one that says O. And the O's go with the O's, X. And it's important that they're that way because the way the 2x4 is on the back side, if we put it the opposite way, it makes the leg crooked, okay? And it's important that it's not X there because then the angle is not the right one. So X right against the X. And then we need two screws up here and two screws from the inside, not the outside, because once the boards are all set up, we can't access those screws. And if we need to change any pieces, so screws from the inside. That's why we ask for all those cordless drills. There are screws over on the table by the red shack. Yeah, some of them are, for these we need the 3 inches or 2.5, okay? And make sure you don't like drive those screws in like 1.5 inches deep because it makes it really hard in the spring to take out. So just flush against the wood and try to be straight in and not at an angle because that also makes it hard in the spring to take apart, okay? So pushing straight in, 2 screws here, 2 screws from the top, and then the boards get flipped up. We need to start, we'll set up the 2 gates here because that's what determines where the rest goes along here. So from this end, we're going to work our way outside once the gates are in. From the other end, we have to find how many boards are in total. We'll start from the middle at the apex and work our way outside. But the same idea, we lay out all the boards, we can start screwing all the legs, that can be done, and then we work at putting them up. Once they're up, there is a 2x4 that goes here at the back to brace them. There's also some of those, there's little stakes in there that are not actually cut at an angle, they're flat. We need to put a flat one here to hold the 2 boards together to the next one. And then these get dug in the ground to solidify it to the ground. So then when the ground freezes, it holds everything nice and tight. Okay, so there's a number of stakes that gets put up after to hold the boards all together. Okay? When the boards do go up, it's important that they're flush as much as possible between 2 boards. If you can't get that flush, think of the way they're skating. So the first one would have to be on top and not the second one, because if they fall, they're going to hit the end of that plywood. Make sense? Okay. Some of the boards are not quite adjusted. Sometimes we put a little, we put a razor on the back to lift the legs so that they're right angle. So we do try to make them as flush as we possibly can, thinking of the skaters if they fall. So that's for the boards at both ends. Notice there's markers, orange markers. Those are where the base of the boards go. So we need to, they're not marked and there's no point this morning putting some paint. They will go away. So we need to stay in that radius with the base of the boards at the bottom of those stakes. Okay? So Eric, can you take care of managing this end?
Until about 11:15, yes.
We'll be done by then. Bob, can you take care of managing the other end? Okay, so we'll split up. There'll be 4 crews. 4 crews. 1 crew at the other end, 1 crew at this end. Pick your favorite person and follow them. And then there will be another crew of at least about 8 people, and it can include kids and all of those. Straightaways have boards on the outside and on the inside, as you know. The boards on the outside are 2x8s. The boards on the inside are 2x6s. And remember last year, when we joined them, we added a piece of plywood behind. So those pieces of plywood are still attached to one piece. They need 1.25 inch screws that are also on the table to attach the other plywood. So we lay them facing down with the plywood up. We join 2 at a time, and then we move them up with the plywood on the outside, not on the inside, on the outside. And then again, we drive those stakes not on the joint where the plywood is, but where there's a solid piece of wood. So the 2x6 or the 2x8, probably 2 per board roughly, depending on the length of the board. Drive those in so they're at least 1 inch below the top of the 2x6 sitting here, or 2x8. So so that we don't hit it with the machinery, okay? And then we screw from this side into the 2x6 or 2x8, so the screws are not actually protruding on the inside where the skaters will be. Hoping we'll get enough ice that we don't see those, but regardless, drive the screws from the outside. Again, nice and straight, and don't try to dig in so you're going right through. It makes it hard in the spring. So 2.5 inch screws or 3 inch. If you use the 3 inch, those are an inch and a half, so they may go on the other side. So I recommend actually using the 2.5 before we get into the 3 inch screws. So those green ones are actually 3 inches. Let's put those away. Sorry, sir, if I can ask you to do that. I don't know your name. Let's put the lid back on. There's another box in there on the table over there with the red lid. Those are 2.5. That way we're sure they're not going to go through. Okay? So we'll take 6 or 8 people. We need the truck then to take all the 2x6 and 2x8s underneath the red shack. And we just lay them down and then we start tackling. The rope has been installed on the very last, on the outside of the straightaway. We'll start with that. Okay? Any questions? Oh, there's coffee and muffins inside, and there's heat inside, somewhat. One of the heaters not working, but getting there. Any questions?